God, I keep telling you guys, if I keep reusing the same intro for these set breakdowns, it's not going to be fun. Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to be breaking down G-BT11, which is Demonic Advent, which has support for Dark Irregulars, Gear Chronicle, Genesis, Kagero, Nubatama, and Royals. So, I don't play any of these clans myself, at least like in terms of having the decks, but I have played against them a lot, and the thing that's going to be different in this set breakdown is that I've actually had the chance to play against a lot of these decks in person while I was on holiday in Japan in July, so I'll have a little bit more of a, constructive commentary on a lot of these new cards, so that's going to be quite interesting, I think. But before we get into the clans, let's take a look at the new Clay Elemental, which is Chronicle. So Chronicle was revealed in the BCS Netherlands, which was like in the beginning of May, so like 4 months ago, and his skill is, when your units would be chosen by any fighters due to the effect of your opponent's card, choose units including this unit as much as possible. He is a 5k grade 1, but this skill is quite interesting because instead of having skills that mass retire, or basically anything that would choose something multiple times, you can just choose him as many times as possible. So that's quite interesting. He will die after the first time he's chosen if it's for a retire effect, but it's like if your opponent uses something like bounce your whole field, you can just say no, only Connell is going to be bounced, and that's it. So it's quite interesting. I've seen people tech him in some decks, but we'll see if he gets more useful as time goes on, because that tends to be the case with these Clay Elementals. But anyway, now for the actual clans, I don't have too much of a particular order. There's a few clans that I like a bit more than the others, so we're gonna go from least to most as always, but the most is kind of tied between three, so it's not really gonna matter which one we go with. But let's begin with the least excited for me, and this is Dark Irregulars. So first of all, we have the new triple rare, which is one who splits darkness, Bledermaus, or Bredemaus, something along those lines. So this is DI's first restanding stride. So the skill is, once per turn, GB2 darkness. When he attacks, if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, you can counterblast 1 and persona flip, and choose 2 cards from your hand and put them into your soul. If you do, return all grade 0 cards from your rearguard circles and soul to your deck. Shuffle your deck, choose 2 of your units, and they get plus 5 until end of turn. At the end of that battle, stand this unit and he gets drive -2. Not only does he restand for a pretty small cost, because yes, you do lose 2 cards in hand, but they go to your soul, but you return all grade 0s from rearguard and soul to your deck, aka basically all your triggers and enigmatic assassins, unfortunately. But it's definitely quite strong. It doesn't refresh your drop zone, but this is an interesting way to do refreshes, and you also buff up 2 of your units. It can also be him, and then he restands. So overall, a very solid stride. Dark Irregulars have been really meta after this set, mainly Blade Wings, but it's this stride I see in pretty much all of them because it's a very, very solid card. So yeah, definitely a very good way to start off the new support for this clan. Next we have the new Sharot. So this is one who scatters sin, and he has 2 skills. One is the on stride skill. When you do, you may soul charge 2. If you do, and the number of cards with the darkness ability in your soul is 4 or more, your opponent chooses one of the rearguards and retires it. So it's an on stride soul charge 2, and your opponent chooses to retire, but no counterblast attached. Then the skill is a GB2 darkness on Vanguard and rearguard circles. When he attacks, if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, until the end of that battle, he gets plus 5k, and your opponent can't guard with grade 0s from hand. So again, it's quite interesting that the GB2 is on the bottom and the on stride is at the top. We've seen this kind of switching around lately, but yeah, this new Sharot is pretty strong. It's much better than the old one in my opinion. So it's also because his GB2 is also in rearguard circle, and that becomes a lot more threatening, and even his on strike skill is not that bad either. So overall, it's a quite solid new grade 3 for darkness. And don't forget that we do split up the clans into archetypes, so we're going over the darkness, and I'm also going to include the generic stuff with darkness, and then we're going to go over the Amon only stuff after that. So the next darkness card we have is Closet Balloon. So this is just your normal Perfect Guard, but after you guard with it, if you have a Closet Balloon in your soul and the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, you can draw a card, which is pretty cool. And then his other skills are Continuous Rearguard Circle, GB1 Darkness. If the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, he gets plus 2k power. So he's an 8k booster / attacker, if you choose to use him that way. and then, you know, you can kind of call him out aggressively, and then when he hits the drop, after being attacked or retired, you'll be able to proc that skill a bit easier without having to PG first, and then you'll be able to, you know, just draw off that PG immediately. So he's not as good as the old Perfect Guard that just retrieves herself from the soul, but he's quite interesting and good nevertheless. Next we have another new stride, which is Sorrowful Slice Lujairus. So he has an act once per turn. You can counterblast 1 and flip a unit face up, soul charge 3. For each different grade among the cards you soul charge, choose one of your rear guards and it gets plus 5k until end of turn. If a card with a darkness ability was soul charged by this effect, you can choose up to one grade 3 card from your soul and put it to your hand. This is quite interesting. It's very RNG, but it does flip up a G unit, which is quite cool. And it, like, even if it doesn't work out, you do get 3 different soul charges, which is good. And, you know, then depending on if you have a different or a variety of grades, then you're gonna get some power buffs on your field as well. But most importantly, when you soul charge darkness, which most of the time you will be, unless it's like your non-darkness triggers and stuff, or like any other units, then you also get to search a grade 3 back from your soul, which is good because that's your stride fodder for next turn. So overall, this guy is actually not that bad for a rare stride. Definitely surprising, I'm not gonna lie. So quite a good card. I'm honestly not disappointed with him being a rare stride. Next we have the G Guardian, which is not darkness restricted, but it's generic, so I'll just combine it with darkness, which is Cryptid No Liege Sabnak. So when you guard with him during the battle, your opponent's Vanguard attack. If the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, you can counterblast 1. If you do, he gets plus 5k shield, and you choose one of your Vanguards, and he gets plus 5k defense, plus 5k power until end of that turn. So this helps out Blade Wings quite well, I think, as well. It does cost a counterblast, but Blade Wings, from what I remember, didn't use that much counterblast. So it's quite a good card because not only does he become a 20k shield, he also gives plus 5k shield to your Vanguard as well, so that's definitely quite good. And if anything, it's honestly, for one counterblast, it's actually not that bad. So I think this is, like, also for a rare, this is a very good G Guardian. Next we have this cute new grade 2, which is Covetous Succubus. When you call her on GB1, Darkness, you can counterblast 1. If you do, you soul charge 1, and if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, you countercharge 1, so that counterblast gets nullified. Then if it's 10 or more, you draw 2 cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. So essentially, you don't pay counterblast, you soul charge 1, and you have to draw 2, discard 1. It's a pretty good card. The reason why it's like counterblast 1 and then soul charge 1 is like so you don't call her when you don't have any face-up counterblast. But honestly, pretty good card for Darkness, I would say. Helps you with advantage and helps you with, well, I wouldn't say so much with the soul charge because it's just 1, but I think it still counts, you know, for the fact that it does give you something, and her legs are top-notch. Next we have Brennan Vampire. So when he attacks a Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Sharrat in its name, you can counterblast 1 on GB1 Darkness. If you do, he gets plus 1k for until end of battle and for each card in your soul, so that can build up to like plus 10, plus 15, plus, in some games, plus 20k. And then at the end of that battle, put this into your soul and draw a card. Actually quite good, because he not only gets a massive power pump in late game, but he also goes into soul after that, filling up your soul even more and giving you another card draw. Just make sure you don't deck out, which is definitely something that could happen. But DI does have quite a lot of ways to filter the deck by now, or well, to recycle the deck rather. So I think this shouldn't be the biggest problem. I don't think you'd play 4 of this, but a couple might not be that bad. Next we have a reprint for Japanese, but the first printing of it in English, which is Where Tiger Jaeger. This card is insane. As we all know, this is one of the most insane grade 1s that Dark Irregulars have ever gotten. He has 3 skills, which, you know, is quite a lot for a random grade 1. So let's go over them. First of which is, when this card is put into your soul for the effect or cost of your card during your turn, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card. That one is not that amazing, but it's still cool that if it goes into the soul basically for a cost or an effect, then you counterblast 1 to draw. But from what I understand, if it's put by an effect, technically it shouldn't work, right? It's just like for the effect, so like if you pay the cost to put him in, or it's like let's say you pay a cost like counterblast 1 for something else, and then it says at the end of this battle put 2 cards into your soul, then you would. I don't think it works if you just top deck soul charge it. So at least that's what I think. But next is its in soul skill, which is one of the most important ones. Darkness Count 1 and discard a card from your hand. If the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, soul charge 1, then if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, you put him into your hand. And then the reason why I put him into your hand is because when you pay the cost for Stride, if the number of cards in your soul with the darkness ability is 2 or more, he becomes a grade 3 in your hand. So he's your Stride fodder, he gives you draw, he gives you soul charges, he's overall incredible. He does eat up the counterblast of the deck, but he's one of the few very amazing cards that helps out this deck a lot. So War Tiger Jaeger has been stomping in Japanese a lot, and now he's finally out in English, so we'll see what the new results will basically show us for Darkness. But in the end, as we all know, Blade Wings, you know, while they are a very strong deck, they still lose to the strongest opponent of the game, which is the rules. Next up we have Spread Arson. Vanguard and Rearguard Darkness, it's a grade 3 with 11k power. When his attack hits a Vanguard, you soul charge 2, and if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, you choose one of your units and gets plus 5k until end of turn. Nothing super special, it's just basically an on-hit soul charge 2 and buff something by 5k if you have 10 or more. I just kind of think it might be useful for the Rearguard part of this skill, and the fact that it's not GB1, but probably won't see it used. Next up we have another generic card, which is Big Shaker. So this is when he's called, you can count +1. If you do soul charge 1, and if the number of cards in your soul is 6 or more, he gets plus 3k until end of turn, and if it's 10 or more, you can count charge 1 and he gets plus 3k. So soul charge 1 for a +6 is what he's going to be doing in late game, so it's not too bad. Can make 22k lines at least with a proper booster, which isn't just a 5k, so not too bad for a generic card, but probably won't see much play because there are better options. Next we have Listig Vampire. When you guard with her, I want to say, if you have a Vanguard with the Darkness ability, you can choose a card from your hand and put it into your soul. If you do, choose a normal unit from your soul and put it into your hand. You know, this means you can fetch out Stride, basically like grade 3s for striding, you can fetch out PGs if you didn't with the skill, or if you run a different one, Stride fodder if you didn't fetch out the Were Tiger with its own skill, and you know, it's all that stuff. The part I like about this is that it's 7k power, they didn't just make it 6k power, so it's kind of usable because you can at least use it as a booster. But yeah, interesting card, but yeah, still not too sure. Next we have a really good starter actually in Deranged Singular. So it is a Forerunner and has Darkness. When this unit boosts, this unit gets plus 2k until the end of that battle. So he's a 7k booster, he cannot be a 7k attacker. And when your G unit strides, put this unit and all of your grade 1 or greater rearguards into your soul and draw 2 cards. So this isn't too bad because you can either choose to not ride it, like call anything, and then you just put him into the soul and draw 2. That way you're losing less units essentially, but you can also, you know, go a bit more aggressive and then basically put everything into your soul, in which case you'll have a bigger soul earlier, but like the deck can build up a big soul early regardless, so I think it's not that important because then you're minusing on a lot of cards in hand. But yeah, very good starter because there's a lot of ways to use this, and it's overall very good for your early game because like just on first stride you get to draw 2 cards, which is really nice. So next we have a couple of reprints on a new trigger. So Dark Knight of Nightmareland and Hysteric Shirley both got reprints, so these are both important triggers for DI that, you know, it's good that you got reprints. And then we have a new trigger, which is Verkat Recruit, which is, first it has a Rearguard and Guardian Circle skill, GB1 Darkness. If the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, this unit gets plus 5k power and plus 5k shield, which is alright. And then his next skill is on the Guardian Circle. When an attack did not hit, you may put this unit into your soul. So if you guard successfully, then you can put him into the soul, which is quite nice. So that is it for the Darkness stuff. Now moving on to Amon. So one of the big Amon supports is this amazing looking new Stride. It looks like a final boss from an JRPG. So this is Amon's Red Eye Fornius. So he has the Act skill once per turn, count +1, choose one of your rearguards and put it to your soul. Your opponent chooses one of their rearguards, retires it, and this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn for every 5 cards in your soul. If the number of cards in your soul is 20 or more, choose 2 of your opponent's rearguards, retire them. Then, if you have a heart card with Amon in its name, this unit gets critical +1 until end of turn. So your opponent has to choose one to retire, and then you choose another 2 to retire if you have 20 or more soul. Quite interesting. For every 5, so usually you're going to be getting +10, +15 on most most turns. This is essentially like for every 1 card in Soul get plus 1k, but like the power additions only happen at every 5. But it's still fine. And then the plus critical is nice, and also the they retire. Like overall, it's a very well-rounded stride for only 1 counterblast and putting a rearguard into your soul, not even a card from your hand. And it's, you know, on GB1 that you stride this on. It doesn't have any other GB restrictions. So overall, a pretty good stride, and I think Amon players are pretty happy about this one. Next is a new Amon Grade 3, which is Amon's Eye Agares. When you ride him, or at the beginning of your ride phase, choose up to 2 of your units with Amon in their card names, and they get plus 1k for until end of turn for each card in your soul. This is really sick, this part, because it's like Amon, the old Amons, would always just gain a lot of power on their own, but this converts that power into 2 units, and they just have to have Amon in their name, so it's definitely very solid. It's also not GB1 restricted, so you can do it when you ride him, and then even if your opponent like grade 2 stalls you and they don't ride to grade 3 so that you can't stride, this still keeps happening, and thus making it a really strong deck, because this can happen obviously at the beginning of ride phase, so before you stride, but it's also really good because like if your opponent doesn't stride and you're just stuck there not striding the whole game, then he will be building up a lot of power, so it's actually really solid, and it doesn't cost anything. Next, his on-stride skill is when you stride an Amon on top of him, you can counterblast 1. If you do soul charge the same number of times as the number of cards in your soul. So it's kind of like a mirroring move. It's like if you have 10, you soul charge 10. If you have 20, you deck out. So I like the first skill a lot more. I think it's very strong. Second skill is also cool. It really accelerates your soul charges. But I think the first skill is exceptionally good. But overall, a really good card for Amon, and it's only a rare. Next, we have an Amon Quintet Wall in Amon's Velation Boufster. When you guard with her, you can cast 1 Amon. If you do, call 5 cards from the top of your deck to Guardian Circle. That's it. And then in Soul, she has an act once per turn, cast 1. If the number of cards in your Soul is 15 or more, choose 3 of your other normal units and trigger units with Amon in their card names from your Soul. If you chose 6 cards in total, return those cards to your deck and shuffle your deck and cannot charge 1 Soul, charge 1. The Soul effect is probably more efficient and more useful, I think, but it's quite interesting that it's 3 normals and 3 triggers, and it kind of makes that distinction between the two. So not sure how I feel, because I think PGs are still better in this deck, but I think this might be worth a try. And now let's get into some Amon cards that, especially the second one we're going to talk about here, is going to be more helpful to a different Amon deck. But first we have Amon's follower Audios Thunder. When he's placed on Rearguard Circle, he can soul charge 1. If the card soul charges a card with Amon in its name, you may have this unit get minus 4k. If you do soul charge 1, and this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn for every 5 cards in your soul. So this card's pretty solid, but this next one is Amon's follower Hateful Cyclone. So it's similar to the last one, but it's a grade 1. When you call him, soul charge 1. If the card soul charges a card with Amon in its name, you may have this unit get minus 2k power. Until end of turn, this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn for every 5 cards in your soul. This card helps the grade 1 Amon deck. You heard me right, the grade 1 Amon deck a lot. This has been surfacing in Japan lately. People are playing grade 1 Amon. It is not as consistent as grade 1 7Cs, but it does have guys like this and other cards that gain a lot of power out of nowhere. Which are very, like, not only does this help accelerate your soul, this also helps gain a lot of power to be able to stay on grade 1 and battle through any deck that your opponent throws at you. So very interesting, very interesting. I'll be talking about the Amon, grade 1 Amon deck a bit later, and not in this video, but in the future, so you'll see more of it later on. But this card is interesting, and I think it's definitely worth to keep your eye on it. So that is finally it for the Dark Irregular support. Alright, next up we're looking at Genesis, the first card of which is going to be the reprint, which is Witch Queen of Holy Water Clove. You should be aware of what she does, so we're not going to go over her because she's an old card. But the first of the next new cards is Goddess of Investigation Ishtar. So technically Ishtar lore-wise is not exactly investigation unless you're into that, but yes, so she has Revelation as a stride, meaning that when you actually stride her, you get to check the top card of your deck for Revelation, which is quite interesting. Her next skill is quite interesting, to say the least. When you drive check a grade 1 or greater card, you can Soul Blast 3 and flip a unit face up. If you do choose up to the same number of your units as the number face up Ishtars in your G-Zone, until end of turn they get plus 3k, and if the card revealed with that drive check has the Revelation ability, you stand those rear guards. So you can do this for every single drive check essentially, which is quite interesting, but you blast through all of your Ishtars in one go if you do it, which is an interesting tempo turn, but I'm not sure how I feel about her. I feel like she's good to an extent. But I'm still kind of shaky about her even after seeing her in person. So, interesting stride, but I do like the grade 3 even more, which is Prime Beauty Amaruda. So she recently departed from the anime, spoilers, but very cool personality in the anime and also a pretty cool unit. So it does have Revelation on Vanguard and Rearguard circles, and as a continuous Vanguard circle, you may pay Soul Blast 3 cards with the Revelation ability as the cost for stride. So instead of discarding for stride, you can just Soul Blast 3 Revelations instead, which is definitely quite good. Next is her on-stride skill, which is when you stride, you can count plus 1. If you do Soul Charge 2, if a card with a Revelation ability was Soul Charged by this effect, you draw a card and choose up to 2 of your units and they get plus 4 until end of turn. So it's not as consistent as the Fenrir on-stride skill of just reviving units that are Soul Blasted, while this one is a bit more just advantage plus power pumping, which is also quite good. I know a lot of people are going to be trying to build a deck around her, and I honestly encourage you. I think it's a pretty cool idea, so I hope that goes well. Next up we have the new Fenrir, which is Dark Wolf that hunts deities Fenrir. So this is drawn by Daisuke Izuka, and it's probably one of the few Daisuke Izuka drawn cards that is not incredible and amazing. So when you call him or ride him, you can count plus 1 and Soul Blast 3. If you do, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, put 1 card from them into your hand, put 1 card into your soul, and the rest in the bottom or top of your deck. And if you have a face-up card in your G-Zone with Fenrir in its name, you countercharge 1. So it turns into Soul Blast 3 if you've already stridden a Fenrir, and get 1 card in hand, 1 card in soul, and 1 card on top or bottom, but probably going to be top in that case. So he's actually not a bad card. I've seen a lot of Revelation decks now play 4 of the old Fenrir, 4 Wise Man, and 2 of this new Fenrir, because he does help getting... It's kind of like a top 3 toolbox kind of thing. Like the fact that it lets you choose 1 into hand is like very cool, and then you just put whatever into soul, and it countercharges too. So like it's overall pretty cool, and you can determine your 1 drive check by doing this as well if you don't soul charge it. So I think it's actually not that bad. It's not groundbreaking or super duper amazing, but it's definitely quite solid. Next we have a Revelation Perfect Guard, Revelation on Guardian Circle. So when you guard with it, you can look at the top card of your deck and do the Revelation stuff. But when you guard with it, you can guard for any unit. And then when she's removed from the Guardian Circle, if you have another Kibitsuhime in your soul, then you can soul charge too. So the main payoff of this, I think, is Revelation. I do quite like that it has that, but I'm not sure which of the Perfect Guards you would still be playing at this point. Next is a G-Guard, which is Goddess of Twill Tag Woot. So she's really wooting pretty hard over here. Her skill, when you guard with her, you can choose 1 of your rear guards and choose up to 3 cards with the same card name as that unit from your drop zone and put them into your soul. If you put 1 or more cards, this unit gets plus 10k shield until the end of that battle. So pretty much always you're going to be able to get off this 25k shield for no cost. So it's actually, again, not that bad. These rare G-Guards have been pretty good so far. Next is a really important grade 2, which is a Ninil. She has Revelation, Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, and on Rearguard Circle GB1, when your other Rearguard rests with the effect of your card, if you have a Vanguard with a Revelation ability, you can Soul Blast 1. Oh my god. Next, her other skill is when you are... Next, her skill is when your other rearguard rests. I can't fucking talk. Help. Next, her second skill is when your other... Why is this happening? I don't know why I can't say it. Fucking kill me, am I this tired? Holy shit. Her second skill... Oh my god. I think I'm genuinely lacking oxygen in my brain. Okay, her second skill is when your other... What the fuck? Why am I laughing? Her second skill is when your other rearguard rests due to the effect of your card on GB1 on Rearguard Circle. If you have a Vanguard with a Revelation ability, you may Counterblast 1. If you do, increase this unit's power by the original power of the rested rearguard until end of turn. God, why did that? Why? I don't understand. But she's really good for the fact that essentially when you rest anything for Revelation, for example, you can Counterblast 1 to have her gain the power of that Revelation unit that you rested. So if you rest a 9k, you can Counterblast 1 to make her an 18k, and then if she gets a plus 3k buff out of nowhere, or plus 4k for Amaruda, she's a 22k. So it's stuff like that that's pretty good. If you rest her booster, you can just Counterblast 1 to put that boost onto her. She's 16 all of a sudden, so really, really nice. This works at any time, both on yours and your opponent's turn, so it's pretty good. I do quite like this card, and it's very important for Amaruda as well. Next is Battle Maiden Cindy. So she also has Revelation, but just on Rearguard Circle. And on Rearguard Circle, she has the GB1 skill. Once per turn, when your other Rearguard is rested due to the effect of your card, you could look at the top card of your deck, put it on the top or bottom of your deck, and if you put it on the bottom of your deck, then she gets plus 2k power until end of turn. So if you keep it on the top for your drive check, then, you know, you won't get the power, but if you put it on the bottom, she will become an 11k attacker. So, only works when a card is rested, so she's not super amazing, but I think she can still be used in some decks. Next is Multitask Angel, which is, you know, half of us really. And he has Revelation on Rearguard Circle and on GB1 on Rearguard Circle. When he's rested to the effect of your other card, you can Counterblast 1 if you do stand him, and he gets boost until end of turn because he is a grade 2 with 8k power. So it's interesting, but feels a bit too gimmicky and too Counterblast, if too costly, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, a bit too gimmicky for my liking, so I don't think he's gonna get much play. Next is Goddess of Transitory Awanami. Revelation on Rearguard Circle, and GB1, when this card is put from your soul into the drop zone, you may soul charge 1. Then if you have a Vanguard with a Revelation ability, you soul charge another one. So it's just a bit more soul charge plus, but there are cards without GB1 that do that even better. Next is Detect Angel. I don't really see the wings to call this an angel. Oh no, I do. Okay, those are black wings. Damn. Okay. She has Revelation on Rearguard Circle, and GB1 once per turn on Rearguard Circle. When your other Rearguard is rested due to the effect of your card, this unit gets plus 4k until end of turn. So when you rest something for Revelation, it comes in 11k once per turn though. Still good. Next we have a new Mythguard. It's been a while. Mythguard Markab. So when an attack hits during the battle with this unit boosted, you can discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw a card and choose up to one normal unit from your drop zone and put it into your soul. So it's just another Mythguard. I just wanted to say because Mythguards are pretty cool, so why not? Next we have a new starter that we mainly see Amaruda use, which is Goddess of Headwater Naki Sawame. Her skill, this also works in Fenrir honestly. Act GB1, put her into your soul, choose up to one of your rear guards, stand it, and if you stood it, draw a card. So this is basically to stand your Revelations, which is pretty cool, and it gets you a draw, so it's pretty good. Next we have a new draw, Transport Harpy. It's just a put into soul, give something plus 3k, nothing too special. And that's it for the generics and the Revelations. So next up we have the Witches. Alright, leading the Witch support is Witch Queen of Congratulation, Nasturtium. So her skill is an act once per turn, Counterblast 1 if you have a hard card with Witch in its card name, choose up to 2 of your units with Witch in their card names, and until end of turn they get plus 5k power. And the skill that when this unit attacks, you soul charge 1. And if you have 2 or more hearts, aka if you're in Legion, she gets plus 10k and a crit. Pretty good for a first stride, but I'm not sure. I'm just thinking if she's as good as the Amon one, because they kind of released, you know, in the same set, and they're supporting 2 under-supported archetypes. So this is a Counterblast 1 for 2 power buffs and 2 soul charges, and for a 10k and a crit on her. And Witch Strides have a tendency for having crits and running into PGs, so this might not be too bad, but I'm not the... No, that's the Regalia one, I'm confusing it, my bad. But yeah, I'm not too sure how I feel about this one. I feel like it doesn't... Like for one Counterblast, it does a lot, but I feel like they need something else to keep them going apart. Like as a first stride is pretty good, because having a crit on first stride with a 36k power minimum is pretty strong. I don't know why I can't make up my mind about this, but like she's not bad. Plus 5k to 2 things, that's like you're making 2 21k columns, plus getting soul charges off of it, plus having her hit for 36 without boost with the crit. It's not bad. It's pretty good for first stride, but you know, so it's not. Yeah, okay, it's not bad. I'm gonna stop trying to convince myself and just settle for it. Next we have Witch of Pure Star Anis, so she does Legion with Witch of Aster's Star, which we'll take a look at after, but her skill is once per turn, counterblast 1. When your card with Witch in its card name is put from your soul into the drop zone, you can counterblast 1. If you do, call that card to Rearguard Circle, and if this unit is in Legion, you draw a card. So when you Soul Blast a Witch, essentially you counterblast 1, and you call that Soul Blasted unit, and then if you're in Legion, you draw an extra card. Pretty good counterblast 1 to get an extra attack and a draw. Actually, not bad. It's just that Legions aren't really used anymore. And then her second skill is, when your unit with Witch in its card name is placed on Rearguard Circle during the turn that this unit Legioned, you can Soul Blast 3. If you do, Countercharge 1, Soul Charge 1. So it's only during the turn that she Legioned, so it's one of these Legions. But I think the first skill is actually better. Here's her Legion mate, which is Witch of Aster Star. When she's ridden or called, you can counterblast 1. If you do, Soul Charge 2, and if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Witch in its name, choose up to 2 of your units, and those units and this unit get plus 2k power until end of turn. So she's quite great because not only does she work on call but also on ride to counterblast 1, Soul Charge 2, and give 2 things plus 2k, so you can, you know, turn your 9ks into 11ks. So for a 1 counterblast is not too bad. I just keep seeing 1 counterblast on a lot of things in this deck, so it kind of makes me worried for, you know, the overall cost efficiency in the whole deck. But I think this, you know, this might be a pretty fun deck to play casually. Also, the art is pretty great. They also got a Quintet wall just like Amon, so when you guard with it, counterblast the Witch, top 5 calls. And then the skill after that is, when this card is put into your soul from your drop zone, if you have a Vanguard with Witch in its name, you can choose a card from your hand and discard it. If you do, return this card to your hand and Soul Charge 2. So she just recycles herself and gives you Soul Charges, but you do have to discard. But, you know, it's a break even, so it's not that bad. Next, we have the new Witch starter, which is Black Feathered Witch Stevia. So, you know, I definitely do put this in my tea. And she's got an Act Rearguard Circle skill, counterblast 1 and put her into the soul. If you have a Vanguard with Witch in its name, look at top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 card into your soul from among them, put the rest into your drop zone, and then choose one of your units with Witch in this card name and it gets plus 5k until end of turn. So instead of giving you anything into hand, she just goes, put something into the soul and then the rest into the drop zone, which accelerates your Legion and gives something plus 5k. But overall, I don't think this is too great compared to the other starter choices. Next is this amazing looking stand that looks like it's been pulled straight out of Shadowverse, not gonna lie, which is Drip Witch Rosemary. So her skill is, when she's put from your soul into your drop zone during your turn, if you have Vanguard with Witch in its card name, you Soul Charge 1, choose one of your units with Witch in its card name, and it gets plus 2k until end of turn. So every time you Soul Blast her, you just get to Soul Charge 1 back, so it balances out, and you get to give something plus 2. So she's overall okay. If you're playing Witches, why not play her? She's just giving you essentially free plus. So definitely not bad, and that's actually the end of the Genesis cards. Let us resume, and the reason why I say resume is because I had to take a whole day break between recording this one video with the king of burgers, which is Kagero with Flare Arms Ziegenberg. So this stride is bonkers. It is pretty amazing. First off, it has Blaze. Second, has an Act on Vanguard Circle once per turn. Soul Blast 1 and flip a Persona G unit. Then you retire one of your opponent's rearguards on choice. So that's a start. You get a G unit face up, so putting yourself at GB2 instantly. And then has the other once per turn GB3 skill. At the end of the battle this unit attacked, if this unit is blazing, you may counterblast 1 and choose the same number of cards from your hand as the number of your opponent's rearguards and discard them. If you do, stand this unit and gets drive -2. So a good Kagero player will usually wipe out your whole field when they're using this, so that they don't have to discard anything and just have to counter blast 1. I played against this while I was in Japan, and that's exactly what happened to me. So this is a really good stride, honestly. It's just really good for Kagero, even though they already have a lot of Restanders, but this is really good for the Blaze deck, which does not have Restanders. So Overlord has been kind of down in the dumps lately. It's not been doing that well, while Blaze has been really going up. So let's take a look at the next card that does help out Blaze a lot, which is Dragonic Blade Master Cohen. So again, he has Vanguard and Rearguard Circle Blaze, And he has the on-stride skill that when your unit strides, you can counterblast 1. If you do choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it, and choose one of your units with a Blaze ability, and it gets plus 3k until the end of turn. So not only are you retiring something for counterblast 1, you're also buffing something up by 3k, which is pretty big, because you can turn things into 10k boosters, and buff up an 11k to 14, so that I can easily snipe rearguards without having to boost, and just add up other power throughout the turn. So overall, like, this extra 3k is really nice. It's like nice, just like cherry on top. And then his GB2 is at the end of each turn, so each turn here meaning that both at the end of your turn and at the end of your opponent's turn, if your opponent has no rearguards, you choose up to one grade 3 card with a Blaze ability from your drop zone and return it to your hand. This is really big because with Night Rose still being quite big, and sometimes leaving herself with no rearguards, usually doesn't anymore. Usually tends to leave, you know, a Cannoneer in there or something like that. This is pretty big because you basically get yourself a Stride Fighter every single turn, which in my opinion is pretty huge. So because of him and because of Ziegenberg, the Blaze deck has been much more popular. In Japan it's been topping a lot more, and honestly I like to see that myself. Next we have Flare Trooper Doomjid. So this is one of the other diff riders. So it's just a perfect guard, but it also has Blaze and GB1. If you have a Doomjid in your drop zone, he gets plus 15k shield as well, so you can drop him without perfect guarding, or when you... Well, no, it doesn't really help too much against Daikaiser, because if you get one grade 3, you kill this, so they lose both a PG and a 15k shield. So, you know, not gonna help against that, but might help against other things. The next generic card that we're also adding to the Blaze pool is Divine Dragon Knight Abd Salam. So when you guard with him during the battle, your Vanguard was attacked by your opponent's Vanguard. You can counterblast 1. If you do, this unit gets plus 10k shield until you have battle for each of your opponent's open rearguard circles. This can be quite big. It is on your opponent's turn, obviously, so you're not gonna have an as open field as you may wish. But you know, if you're fighting against something like, let's say, something like Tachikaze, and they use a Dogma turn, and then they're, you know, hitting you with that 36k Dogma with no field, you just drop this on him and gain a 50k shield for one counterblast, so it's not that bad. I think this could see as a one-of in some Kagero decks. It's quite restrictive on when you can use it, so it's not against rearguards. But, you know, just like in the case that I just mentioned, it can be quite useful. Next up, we have a really good rare grade 2 for Blaze, which is Dragon Knight Mubdi. I think Mubdi was how it was. Mubdi sounds better, kind of like Mubdi, kind of makes this like nice noise. So he has Blaze and GB2. When he attacks a Vanguard, if you have a Blazing Vanguard with Blade Master in its name, you may counterblast 1. If you do, you draw a card, and he gets plus 2k until the end of that battle for each of your opponent's open rearguard circles. This is quite big because for one counterblast, you're getting yourself an extra card in hand and a potential plus 10k on just a rear without boost, so that's going to be 26k for one counterblast if they don't have anything on their field, and chances are on your turn they won't. So yeah, this is a very good grade 2, I like it quite a lot, and it's being played quite a lot in Blaze as well. Next up we have a good common, not the most common thing to say for Blaze, which is Wyvern Strike Jalgo. So he has Blaze on Vanguard rearguard circles, and when he's called or ridden, you may counterblast 1 and soul blast 1. If you do, choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column and retire it. Then he has the Vanguard and rearguard circle GB1 continuous. If your Vanguard is blazing, this unit gets plus 2k for each of your opponent's open rearguard circles in the back row. This is a pretty good card because he not only on call retires, but he also can gain up to a 6k, making him a 17k on his own, and even then he's like a 15k or something like that, and then you add in the new Koen Blade Masters plus 3k, and then something else, and then slowly it builds up. So this is really not a bad grade 3. Most Blaze decks that I saw in Japan ran 4 of the new Blade Master, and then 2 or 3 of this guy, because he's honestly not that bad. So I think he's quite solid and definitely worth considering. Next up we have Dragon Knight Shakur, who also has Blaze and GB1. When you call him, if the number of your rearguards is less than your opponent's, you can counterblast 1. If you do, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So he's essentially there to kind of work your way back from being behind, if that makes sense. And then finally, if your Vanguard is blazing on GB1, this unit gets plus 2k power. So not bad, not bad. Again, a fairly usable common, but I wouldn't say it's as usable as the last one. Next we have Dragon Knight Tahir. He has Blaze, and when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if number of rearguards is less than your opponent, then you can plus 1 to retire one of your opponent's rearguards. It's the exact same as the grade 2 we looked at before, but this time on grade 1, which could make him a bit better because he is now a 9k booster instead of just an 11k attacker, which is a bit easier to get than a higher booster. But, you know, I digress. I think they're both pretty alright. Another generic card is Dragon Monk Shinsen. At the end of your turn on GB1, if your opponent has no rearguards, you may retire him. If you do, countercharge 1, if the number of your rearguards is 3 or more, you draw a card. This isn't bad. This, you could actually get this off fairly consistently because usually you wipe out your opponent's field regardless by the end of your turn, so you get a countercharge out of him, and you also draw a card to negate the loss that you get from retiring him. And it's at the end of your turn, so it's not like you're retiring a booster randomly before you even use it, so definitely not too bad. And finally we have a new Blaze starter, which is Wyvern Kid Data. So it has Blaze on rearguard circle and GB1. When your Vanguard becomes blazing, you may retire him. If you do, countercharge 1, draw a card, choose one of your units and it's plus 3k until end of turn. This is basically a jack of all trades. It's kind of just countercharging, drawing, and buffing things. Obviously not as amazing and super duper great as Conroe, but you know, Conroe is free from his shackles of enchainment, so you could still keep using him. Next we have Art Peak, which I'm pretty sure is reprinted, and you know, just with a new art, which does look pretty nice. And then the last Blaze card is Dragon Dancer Nilda. So she has Blaze, and when the attack of your unit with the Blaze ability hits a Vanguard, if your Vanguard is blazing, you may put her on the bottom of your deck. If you do, countercharge 1 and choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So they're doing the return to deck stands again, which, you know, spells infinite combos with one simple mistake. So we'll see how this goes, but overall she is really good for a stand. But we'll see how things change over time. And apart from Blaze, Seal Dragons got support in this set, and the first one of which is this new rare stride, which is Hell Deity Seal Dragon Granite Cross. First has the continuous skill, all of your opponent's units cannot intercept, in traditional Seal Dragon fashion, and an act once per turn, Cannonblast 1, Soul Blast 1. If you have a heart card with Seal Dragon in its name, retire all of your opponent's grade 2 rearguards. Then your opponent chooses a grade 2 card from their hand, and they may call it to rearguard circle. If they don't, then you draw a card. So you force them to neg 1 from their hand, which may trigger some on-call skills, maybe. But if they don't neg 1 from their hand, then you draw a card. Or if they don't have a grade 2 card in their hand, then you will be drawing a card. This is not that bad, honestly. I kind of like this one. It's not overcosted for what it does, because it retires all grade 2s, so that's potential of 2 against some decks like Gavriel that like to call the Broken Heart to the back. It might even be 3, and you know, then they force call, and which may be good or bad, but if they don't have the grade 2, then you draw a card for just Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and retire a few. So, not a bad card for a rare. It is the Seal Dragon Stride, but Seal Dragons have this advantage of, you know, being a very, very rogue deck that people don't expect, so a lot of people tend to brick against them and like not know what to do. So that's definitely one of the advantages of the deck. Next we have Seal Dragon Prison Guard Atar. So this is a Quinta wall that requires a Counterblast 1 of a Seal Dragon, and then in the drop zone has a skill that when your opponent's grade 2 unit is placed on rearguard circle due to the effects of your card, you may choose one of your other Sentinels from your drop zone and put it on the bottom of your deck. If you do, return him to the hand. So, kind of an interesting condition, because they have to call grade 2, but from your effect. So, yeah, not bad, not bad. Next up, we have Seal Dragon Seersucker. Not sure if I like that name or not, but the art is pretty cool. First of all, it has the skill that when you call it or write it, you may Counterblast a Seal Dragon. If you do, choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or greater rearguards and retire it. Your opponent searches their deck for up to 1 grade 2 card, calls it to rearguard circle and shuffles their deck. If he or she called a card, you draw a card and countercharge 1, soul charge 1. So you don't pay any Counterblast for this, but you get to soul charge out of this, and you get to retire something, and then you have to search. But if they do search, then you get to draw. So it's really pretty good. But if they choose not to call, then you do lose out on the draw and countercharge 1 and soul charge 1, so then you do pay the Counterblast. So if they don't call it, it's a Counterblast 1 to retire something. If they do call, it's a Counterblast 1 to draw and soul charge 1. That's essentially how you should be looking at this, I think. And then on Vanguard and rearguard circles, it has a GB1 continuous skill. During your turn, this unit gets plus 3k for each of your opponent's grade 2 units. Considering that this is on rearguard circles too, this is actually pretty good. you know, your deck kind of retires a lot of your opponent's non-grade 2 things and then forces them to call grade 2s instead. So because of that, this can gain a shitload of power and then you just wipe everything out. Sadly, this doesn't have much synergy with the Stride, because the Stride wipes out all the grade 2 units as an act, so not on attack or anything. So sadly, yeah, it's an interesting card, but kind of contradicts with some of the other cards that are supporting it. Next, we have Steel Dragon Growgrain. His first skill is, if you have Vanguard with Steel Dragon in its name, all of your opponent's units in the same column as this unit cannot move. So obviously they also can't intercept, but the fact that they can't move is makes your opponent be extra careful. And it's definitely, you know, quite interesting. If you kill off their front rows and they want to like promote the star, like the thing in the back, they just can't. And then next, he has the second skill. When he attacks the Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Steel Dragon in his name, he gets plus 2k until the end of that battle, so just an 11k attacker. Kind of alright, he's not super incredible amazing, but definitely fairly good. And I believe the final Steel Dragon and Kagero card is Birdseye. So, act GB1, put him into your soul, choose up to 2 of your units and get plus 3k until the end of turn for each of your opponent's grade 2 units. So, they get like plus 6 or plus 9 or plus 12 or plus 15 even, just from putting him into the soul. So you can do this several times a turn, so on the right turn, this could be really explosive. So I think Steel Dragons aren't going to be doing too bad for a random rogue deck that's just kind of sitting there like in the midst of not getting much support. This really isn't looking too bad. It might be a pretty fun deck that I might even be willing to try, despite not liking Kagero that much. But that is going to be it for the Kagero support. Up next, we're going to be taking a look at the retrained Ninja Masters, which is Nubatama, with focus on the new Dominate keyword. So we're gonna be starting off with the new cards in the trial deck that are worth talking about, because Dominate did receive a trial deck with the new Shiranui, but first we're gonna look at the new Stride from the trial deck, which is the Enma Stealth Dragon Kingoku Tenbu. So, its skill is Dominate, Vanguard Circle. At the beginning of your battle phase, choose up to one of your opponent's rearguards, stand it and dominate it, and attack your opponent's other unit. So this is exactly what Dominate is. Dominate forces you to take control of your opponent's unit, so it's counted as your own, and it forces that unit to attack one of your opponent's own units. So it's basically turning your opponent's units against your opponent. So this was the Stride. Itself, the Stride is not that great. It's okay as a one of maybe, but you really won't go into it that much. But there's also G-Guard, which is Secret Message Stealth Hermit Abudataishi. So when you guard with him, if the number of cards in your hand is less than or equal to your opponent's, he gets plus 5k shield till the end of that battle. So just your standard 20k shield G-Guard. And now the main grade 3 that we're all looking forward to seeing is Demon Stealth Dragon Shiranui Oboro. First, he has the skill, at the beginning of your ride phase, you may choose a card from your opponent's drop zone. If you do, your opponent calls that card to rearguard circle, and at the end of the turn, retire that unit. This effect does not cost any counterblast or soul anything, you just select one and that's it. Next, he has the Stride skill, which is when you stride, choose up to one of your opponent's rearguards, stand it and dominate it, and until end of that turn, it gets plus 4k and attacks your opponent's other unit. Don't forget that Dominate attacks in the main phase. It doesn't transition directly into the battle phase, it stays in the main phase, and after that turn, after that battle is over, the unit just, it just stops, it just stays rested, essentially. So, yeah, that's how Dominate works. Let's take a look at the other cards in this trial deck. You have Demon Stealth Rogue Genba, which has the Dominate Vanguard Circle GB1 skill. At the beginning of your battle phase, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the front row, stand and dominate and attack your opponent's other unit. So it's just a little bit of front row domination for Soul Blast 1, but it is at the beginning of your battle phase. And then next we have Demon Stealth Dragon Jaken Myowo. So he has, when he's ridden during your turn, you can choose up to one of your opponent's rearguards, stand and dominate, and attacks your opponent's Vanguard. So this time not one of your opponent's other units, but opponent's Vanguard. So not the worst grade 3, but it is on Vanguard Circle. But its rearguard circle skill is GB1. When any player's other rearguard attacks a Vanguard during your turn, this unit gets plus 2k until end of turn. I think this part of the skill is a bit better because you can build up a bunch of power on him at least, but overall it's still not the optimal grade 3. Now, one of the best grade 2s in this whole trial deck is Stealth Dragon Genkai, which is a staple in the Dominate deck right now. So, he has a GB1 rearguard skill. When a dominated unit attacks during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Shiranui in its name, you make Cannon Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1. If you do, you draw a card, and this unit gets plus 2k until end of turn. This skill isn't once per turn, so you can keep doing this. He is a very, very strong grade 2 and a very important staple because he's also your main source of card advantage. Some other interesting cards include Stealth Dragon Seizui. So he has GB1 rearguard circle. When dominating unit attacks during your turn, he gets plus 3k until end of turn. So he just keeps building up power as it goes on. Next, the Stride Fodder was reprinted, which is quite important as this is in the trial deck. And also, they got a draw trigger, which goes into Soul to give something plus 3k, also in the trial deck. And the other card that is very playable and you play in the actual competitive Shiranui deck, which is the starter Stealth Dragon Madoi. So, he has GB1 rearguard circle. When a dominated unit attacks during your turn, you may put him into your soul. If you do, draw a card and choose up to one of any player's rearguards, and it gets plus 3k until end of turn. This is really important because sometimes you can dominate something that isn't quite big enough, even with the 4k buff. So let's say you dominate like their starter that has 5k power. You gave it plus 4, sure it's 9k, it can hit their rear guards, but if you give it the extra 3k, it can now also hit your opponent's Vanguard. So that's the main use of this guy, and he doesn't cost anything apart from putting him into the soul, so he's actually a pretty good starter. So that's it for the trial deck cards. And now let's take a look at all the cards from the set. Before we get on to the new cards though, there are 2 reprints for Nubatama in this set, which are the old Shiranui as well as the Shiranui Crit. So the latter is really important for the Dominate deck as well. So first off, we have the face of the actual set, which is Emma, Stealth Rogue Mujin Lord. So this guy is very strong. He has Dominate, Act, Vanguard Circle once per turn, Cannon Blast 1 and Persona Flip. Choose up to the same number of any player's rear guards as the number of face-up cards in your G-Zone, and they get plus 4k until end of turn. Stand all of your opponent's rear guards that were chosen and dominate them, and each attacks your opponent's Vanguard one at a time. So this is not restricted to any generation break, but obviously you don't want to use it as your first stride unless you G-guarded a lot the turn before, because you need to have a certain number of face-up units to really make the advantage of this card. So it is a very strong card because there are multiple ways to use it, because you can select any number of players' rear guards, so not just your opponents, you can also select your own to give them plus 4k, but it's only the opponents that have received plus 4k that will stand and do the dominated attacks. So this is a very good stride. It is a staple in Dominate. You run 4, you don't first stride him, we'll go into the first stride target after this, but he's very scary, and honestly, like I've talked about him, especially in the how to beat Dominate video, if you want to check that out for some tips against this deck. But Mujin Lord is really important. He's the one that pressures your opponent the most, because not only do they, have to sacrifice so much hand power, but that plus 4k really gets to you, I would say. The only problem is that because of the 4k, even if you select 11k grade 3s, they're going to be hitting for 15k, so as I said before, this can be denied by one single damage trigger, but there is a card coming up in G-BT11 that kind of helps you deal with that. So, really, really good card. Really, really good card. I honestly think this is pretty amazing for a stride that only costs Cannon Blast 1 and Persona, so definitely a very good one. Next, we have your first stride target, which is Enma Stealth Dragon Magun Tenbu. So, he has Dominate, Act once per turn, Cannon Blast 1 and Persona Flip. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards and it gets plus 3k until end of the turn for each face-up card in your G-Zone. Stand and dominate that unit, attack your opponent's other unit, and at the end of that battle, retire the dominated unit. So with him and with Shiranui Yoboro, you're dominating and retiring 2 different units, which makes it quite strong. He also gives the plus 3k, which is pretty good. And even though he can, he can only dominate 1, but he can give more power for each face up in your G-Zone, you don't care about that as much because you're still only dominating 1. So it's better to stride him first and then go into your Mujin Lord. So that's your other stride for this deck. And next we have a really good G-Guard, which is Rikudo Stealth Dragon Geho Rakan. God, some of these names. When you guard with it, you may counterblast 1 and soul blast 1. If you do choose one of your opponent's grade 1 rear guards in their back row, dominate it and move it to your guardian circle. So yes, this will not work if your opponent only has grade 0s in their back row, but as a D-Robo player, when my opponent uses this against my poor Laurel, it does feel quite bad. Especially when I'm like going for that like big turn with like Daikaiser Leon or something, and they take my Laurel, and I'm like, oh damn it, I only have 3 rear guards left, so this kind of loses all of his pressure. So very good G-Guard, does cost more than normal, but it is understandable because it is very strong. Next is a very good grade 2 that you can add into your Dominate decks, which is Stealth Dragon Furai. So he has an Act once per turn, GB1, Soul Blast 1. Choose a card from your opponent's drop zone, your opponent calls that card to their open rearguard circle, and at the end of that turn, they retire it. So just like Shiranui and our Stride friend, they both do the same thing essentially, but only once per turn. And the second skill is GB1. When another unit attacks during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Shiranui in its name, this unit gets plus 2k until the end of the turn. If it wasn't for domination, this wouldn't be a very strong card, but because not only are you attacking at least 3 times on your side of the field, your opponent is getting attacked like 5 times from their side of the field on those big turns. So he can build up at least like plus 16k power. Well, no, not exactly 16, let's say 14k. So, you know, very strong card. I don't think he's worth maxing at 4 because, I don't know, I think Genkai is still more important for now, and there's going to be other cards in G-BT11 that will be more worth maxing, but for now this is at least a 2-3 of, in my opinion. Next we have a new Perfect Guard, which is Stealth Dragon Utsuroi. So it's a Perfect Guard that can protect anything, and it has the Drop Zone skill. When the attack of a dominated unit hits a Vanguard during your turn, you can choose another Utsuroi from your Drop Zone and put it in the bottom of your deck. If you do, return him to your hand. So he's basically like all the new Perfect Guards lately that return to your hand. He's alright. I think for now, you still want the counter-charging one because the deck counterblasts so much and doesn't have many ways to bring it back. So for now, Utsuroi isn't looking like the main contender, but maybe if the deck gets more counter-charging options in the future, then this will become more preferable. Next we have only one card in the whole set that focuses more on binding than dominating, so I'll just mention it now, which is Rikudo Stealth Rogue Kureha Lord. So she has the on-hit skill. If the number of cards in your hand is the same as or less than your opponent's, your opponent chooses a card from their hand, binds it face down. At the end of that turn, your opponent puts the card bound with this effect into their hand. Not really good, it's on hit, she looks good, but overall it's like the bind Nubatama build, but it's not really good support for it in my opinion. Next is Stealth Dragon Tenrei, which in my opinion was a bit overhyped when it was first released. So its skill is Continuous Rearguard Circle GB1. During your turn, your Vanguard with Shiranui in its card name gets all of your opponent's Vanguard's card names, clans, races, and nations. So this is essentially to take advantage of those rearguards that your opponent may have that require a certain name Vanguard, so that way you inherit those and you can use those abilities, but it does not solve the problem of this deck, which is fighting against Lord units. So, you know, that's a bit of a problem, but this kind of helps halfway to buff other things. His other skill is when an attack hits during the battle that he boosted or attacked, you may put him into your soul. If you do, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and discards it. So that part is also quite good, so an overall well-rounded and solid card. Next, we have a really good common that is currently the main backup for Shiranui, which is Remarkable Stealth Rogue Morishige. Has an active Vanguard and Rearguard Circle once per turn GB1. You choose one of your other rearguards and rest it. Your opponent chooses one of their rearguards and gives it plus 3k. If they chose it, then this unit gets plus 10k power until end of turn. The reason why it says if they chose, essentially if they have no rearguards and for some reason you still paid the cost. So this is really good because you can use a skill to rest something that can go back to deck or go to soul, like the Sheer and the Critical, and then give something else 3k, and then that's something else you will dominate. So in the end, that plus 3k works out to your benefit. And the plus 10k also obviously works out to your benefit because you have a 21k attacker or rearguard. So pretty damn strong in my opinion, and definitely very important to the Shiranui deck now until it gets another good grade 3. Next we have Demon Stealth Rogue Kasen Myoyo. Has Dominate on Vanguard Circle, GB1. At the beginning of your battle phase, choose all of your opponent's rearguards in the front row, stand them, dominate them, and each attacks your opponent's rearguard in the back row. Quite interesting. It makes your opponent's front row rearguards attack the back row ones, so it's a nice way to do, you know, field destruction, but in the end, Shiranui Mukuro on the next set is going to do that much better than this random grade 3. His other skill is obviously the on-ride, canvas 1, soul blast 1, top 5 for dominate. We all know how these go. Next is Stealth Beast Uzuritachi. On Rearguard Circle GB1, when a dominated unit's attack hits during your turn, you may retire him. If you do, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and discards it. Just some discard pressure, so it's not when he hits, but when any dominated unit's attack hits. So you've got 5 chances for it to hit, which definitely helps because you're already thinning the deck, or well, thinning the hand of your opponent pretty fast. Next we have a reprint of Fuki. So he is another bind card that helps, but he is a reprint, so we don't count that. And then we have Stealth Dragon Tengai. So when a dominated unit attacks during your turn until end of turn, this unit gets, at the end of your turn, you may put him into your soul. If you do, countercharge 1. Pretty good. He helps with the countercharging of the deck, which I said is quite lacking. So some decks chose to play this now. Mostly in the West, I see that people are playing this guy. Not so much in Japan, although sometimes I still saw this guy being played because countercharge is quite important. And the final card that we have for Nubatama is Stealth Fiend Daruma Collapse. So this is the new stand trigger. His skill is when any player's unit stands due to the effect of a card during your turn, you may retire him. If you do, choose any number of any player's units in the same column as that unit, and they get plus 2k until end of turn. If you choose one or more cards, draw a card. So essentially it's like you're not only buffing their units, because that when you do the dominated attacks, they're gonna be even more powerful, but you're also upping your own power to make fiercer attacks in your own side of the field, and you also get to draw a card because you retired him. This is the stand. I made a mistake in the last in the how to beat. I said the wrong stand. This is the stand that can actually profit off of that that common grade 3 that I said, because you can rest him and then you retire him later, so you're not losing out on that much. So pretty good stand trigger, and is also the last card of the new Nubatama cards. So Shiranui is looking pretty good. It's gonna get even better with the upcoming G-BT11. Mukuro doesn't do too much for it, as much as other cards do, but is still pretty good. Up next is a clan that did not get too many cards of support, but they're definitely very solid, which is everybody's favorite, Royal Paladin. So, first off, we have our GR and SGR, which is Holy Divine Knight Gancelot Peace Saver, or Piss Saver as I prefer to call him. God, this guy is pretty insane. And I remember when he was revealed, everyone was freaking out like crazy. I'm still not sure if it's justified, because in the end, when we look at the skill, let's read it out first. First off, when he attacks, if you have a heart card with Alfred or Blaster in its name, countercharge 1, and until end of that battle he gets an extra drive check. Then if you have a face-up card in your G-Zone, he gets an extra critical. And then he has a continuous G-Zone skill. During your turn, if this card is face up, all of your rearguards with Blaster Blade in their names get resist. So, looking at this on paper, it's pretty amazing, because it doesn't cost anything. His cost is to refund cost, and he gets a drive check for that, and if you stride him after G-Guarding or as a second stride, he will also get the critical. And after that, he gives resist to your Blaster Blades, which are the main attackers of your deck, because they keep restanding and building up power, and it's pretty crazy, right? But then I faced this, and I realized that when they first stride it, I tend to be on 2 or 3 damage, and they don't get the critical yet. Meaning even if they do their 4 drive checks and refund a Counter Blast, it's not that big, because usually they're only hitting me for 1-2 damage if they check a crit. There's more chances of checking that crit because of the 4 drive checks, but in the end I felt like, that's not too scary. And then when they do it a second time, it's kind of okay. But then some players do it a third time, and I'm like, you are barely advancing the game, because I can just throw down Perfiguards at this guy, nothing's gonna happen. You can refund your counterblast, sure, that you're gonna spend on your Liu or your critical, but, it's like, I noticed quite a few players make the mistake of to keep striding him, because they think the 4 drive checks and the extra critical is amazing and the refunded counter charge. But in the end, you still really need the Alfred from the Legend deck that we've talked about in the past to really do things right. So yeah, this is a really, don't get me wrong, this is a really amazing stride, but it's just that when I saw it in play, when I played against it, and I played against it quite a lot, I noticed that it was not as incredible and super duper omega amazing as we all first thought. So that's just my 2 cents on this card. I wanted to talk about this because he is a very, like, again, don't get me wrong, he is an amazing stride. Like, he's just does so many things, and well timed he can just go mad. But yeah, he's not the most broken OP wow OMG, you know, crazy card in the game, but he is very good. Next we have, we're going to keep just going through Blaster support, and then we're going to go over Braves. We have Maiden of Divine Spring Lian. So Lian has been retrained as a Perfect Guard. So when you call her from hand, you may Soul Blast 1. If you do, choose one of your grade 3 units with Alfred or Blaster in their names that is being attacked, and it cannot be hit until the end of that battle. A little bit restrictive. I think I misread at some point, I thought she could guard any Alfred or Blaster. But no, it's just grade 3s, which is a little bit restrictive for a Perfect Guard, because then you can't protect your Luz and all this other stuff, but of course you can protect your Vanguard, which is probably your main use for the Perfect Guard. But, you know, good Perfect Guard, only costs a Soul Blast, you don't have to discard for her cost, which is pretty big, so, yeah, not bad, not bad. Next we have a G-Guard, just 4 Blasters and Alfred, which is Little Great Sage Marin, so it finally ascended to Great. When you guard with Marin, if you have a Vanguard with Alfred or Blaster in its name, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or greater card, call it to Guardian Circle, and it gets plus 5k shield till the end of that battle, and then shuffle your deck. So now the G-Guards are even calling out units. It's pretty sick, so definitely not bad. Up next is a promo that Japan got before this came out in the set, which is New Style Blaster Liu. This is your backup grade 3 for Blasters, and his skill is, when you ride him or call him, choose a card with Blaster Blade in his card name from your drop zone, and you may put it on the bottom of your deck. If you do, this unit gets plus 5k power. So, you know, Royals don't have that much recycling on its own, but this is pretty much the most important card you can recycle, so that Blaster Blade is always there, ready to be called out. And he gets plus 5k on top of that, so it also works on Rearguard Circle. Next up is his Continuous skill, which works both on Rearguard Circle and the Guardian Circle. If you have a Vanguard with Alfred or Blaster in its name, he gets plus 5k shield and Intercept, so he does Intercept as a grade 3. So he just basically becomes a grade 2, because he's a grade 3 power and skill-wise, but he also comes with the bonuses of being a grade 2 if your Vanguard's a Blaster or Alfred, so very, very good. Definitely very good. Up next is just a generic crit, which is Arongal, so you can put him into your soul to give one of your units plus 3k. So just another skilled crit. And the final Blaster card is Aspire Painter, so it's been a while since we had a Painter. It's GB1 when this unit is called from hand. If you have a Vanguard with Alfred or Blaster in its name, you countercharge 1, soul charge 1, and this unit gets plus 3k until end of turn. Not that bad, probably won't be used because, you know, grade 2 space is way too tight, but is definitely quite alright. And that's it for the generic and Blaster stuff, so it's not that much, but the stuff that it is very, very, very strong. Next up we have some Brave stuff, which unfortunately is not that strong. First off we have Divine Knight of Valor, Halbwax. His first act skill is once per turn, Calmas 1, Soul Blast 1, and Persona Flip. Search your deck for up to 1 card with a Brave ability for each face-up card with a Brave ability in your G-Zone, and call them to separate rearguard circles. Those units get plus 2k until end of turn for each unit called. Shuffle your deck. He's not too bad, but there's already quite a lot of good Brave G units, so like he's good, you can obviously play him. That plus 2k for each called is pretty good, and is gonna get better as the game progresses, so definitely not bad. His second skill, nothing too special, just has Brave, Count +1, this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn. So I think they just put that there because they forgot to put Brave on his first skill. So he's an alright stride. Like I said, there's a lot of good Brave strides already, so there is quite some competition for him to go through. Next is Knight of Pulsation Starius. In the deck, if you have Vanguard with Altmile in his name, he gets grade +1, so he counts as a grade 2, so you can summon him just like that. And then he has GB1 Brave, this unit gets plus 2k and Resist. So, you know, just another option. And that marks the end of the new Royal Paladins. So you remember how at the start of the video I said I would take this in order of least to most preferred? It's come a long way since G-BT11 that I would put Gear Chronicle as my most hyped from this set. Yes, I think that the new cards in this set are enough hype for me to put them as the most hype, because Zodiac Time Beasts are finally a proper and really strong deck, and I'm honestly just happy to be freed from the torture of non-stop Time Leap. Even though I'm starting to like Time Leap too, because it's changing a little bit after all the nerfs. It's forced to change, and I like seeing the changes. So let's take a look at the new Zodiac Time Beast cards. I think mostly all of them. I think actually all of them in this set are all just Zodiac Time Beasts. But we're going to start off with a GR that sadly is not that strong, which is Metapulsar Mystery Freeze Dragon. So his skill is once per turn GB3, Counterblast 2, shuffle your deck and bind 4 cards from the top of your deck face up. Until end of turn, for the battle that this unit attacked, your opponent cannot call cards from their hand with the same grade as the cards bound by this effect to Guardian Circle. If a grade 3 card was bound by this effect, he gets Drive +1. So it's a pretty interesting card because it's complete RNG. You know, if you get 4 grade 0s, you just lost a bunch of triggers and your opponent just can't guard with grade 0s, but they'll just PG it. If you put nothing but grade 2s, then that kinda sucks. So just like the last mystery themed card, Stride, this is again very RNG based, but this time not as hard to pull off, but rather it depends on what you pull off, what kind of payoff it's gonna have. So not that good of a Stride unfortunately, but let's get on to the real good Stride, which is Metapulsar Avenir Phoenix. His skill is when he attacks, Counterblast 1 and Persona Blast. If you do, reveal 5 cards from the top of your deck, call up to 2 Zodiac Time Beasts from among them to separate Rearguard circles for each face-up card in your G-Zone. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. And then it continues GB3, all your Zodiac Time Beasts, Rearguards get +2k power. So this is straight up a better Glorious Reigning Dragon, because it only costs Counterblast 1, nothing else, because Glorious Reign also needs that bot deck 2 Rearguards, and this gives you 2 cards for each 1 face-up card in your G-Zone. So it's huge. This spawns a huge field, it buffs it up with its second skill on top of that, which is really big, so this can make some really strong turns, and it combos with a lot of the new cards that we're going to be taking a look at. So this is a really good start for the new Zodiac Time Beast support, so let's keep on going and see what else there is. Sadly, the next card is not as strong, which is Pulsar Drastic Colossus. So there's some Colossus support, but it also works with Zodiac Time Beast, so I just kind of merge the two. So this one's skill is, when you ride him, you can choose a card from your hand and discard it. If you do, reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 2 Gear Colossus or Zodiac Time Beast from among them, put 1 card from among them into your hand, bind 1 face up, and put the rest into your drop zone. And then when you stride on top of him, you may draw a card. If you do, choose a card from your hand, bind it face up, and choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets +1k until end of turn for each card in your buy zone. For Gear Colossus, this is alright, but Gear Colossus is really not that important anymore. But now let's get into another double rare that is really good for the Zodiac Time Beast deck, which is Pulsar Cruising Dragon. Continuous on Rearguard Circle GB1. During your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, he is a 11k attacker, and gets the skill that when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you may Counterblast 1. If you do, look at top 3 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Zodiac Time Beast. I think for the rest of this video I'll just say ZTB instead of Zodiac Time Beast, just to keep it short. And then you put it into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This is really big because 11k attacker on its own, and then on attack, Counterblast 1, look at top 3, put something into your hand. This is pretty big. You can fetch out Perfiguards, you can fetch out Stride Fodders. Yes, Stride Fodders, we'll get to that later. You can fetch out a lot of things that can help you later on, and it's just a Counterblast 1+1. It's just that good, and it's 11k, and you can call it off the new Stride and then make use of it, and it's just so good. Next is Pulsar Tamer Manish. She's usually a 2-of in most Zodiac Time Beast decks that I've seen. So her first skill is Rearguard Circle and Guardian Circle GB1. If you have a ZTB Vanguard, this unit gets Resist. Then, on Rearguard Circle GB1, when she attacks, you may have this unit get +2k until the end of that battle for each of your other Zodiac Time Beast units. If you do at the end of the battle, you bind her face up. So she essentially gets a +10k and then goes away, so she's a 19k on her own. This is really big because you can fetch this off with a new Stride and just swing for an 19 without boost, and you know, well, 19 without boost, but then the Stride skill gives her a +2k, which is a 21k without boost. So it's really strong. I really like her, but she's not maxed out because she's not as useful at all stages of the game. So, and there is a new grade 2 in the upcoming set, which will help her even more. So, really good, really good. Next, we have another really good card, which is Pulsar Transit Dragon. At the end of the battle that this unit boosted, if you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Chronojet in its name, you can put him into your soul if you do draw a card. So it's a Jeffrey clone, but the reason why this is really good is because you can use Split Pegasus to convert any random just any random grade 2, like a 10k vanilla or whatever, that you've already used into 2 transits, and then you use those 2 transits to draw a card. So you just converted a 1 card into 2 boosters that then turned into 2 cards in your hand. So that's why this is good. It works really well with Split Pegasus, so it's a very good grade 1 that you want to max out in your Zodiac Time Beasts. Next is the Stride Fodder we talked about, which is Revolver Draco Kid. So when you call him from hand, you can reveal a Zodiac Time Beast grade 3 from your hand, and then you search your deck for a grade 3 ZTB, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then choose a card from your hand, discard it, just like every other Stride Fodder, but this is just ZTB. And then when you're paying the cost for Stride, he gets grade +2 in hand. So he's literally just a Stride Fodder that helps your ZTBs. So good. Really good. And he obviously has ZTB in his attributes, so that's why you can search him off the cruising. So it's important to max this because you can search it off the cruising. This is really important. Next we have a Pulsar Tamer Dagan. So he is, when you guard with him, he's a Quintet Wall. So when you guard with him, you counterblast 1 during the battle your Gear Colossus was attacked. If you do, call top 5 of a deck to Guardian Circle, and if the number of cards in your binding zone is 7 or more, you countercharge 1. So it's essentially free. And then his continuous Guardian Circle skill is all of your other Zodiac Time Beast Guardians get +10k shield, which is pretty big. So that part is quite nice, but again, this works mostly just with Gear Colossus. Next is a super good Zodiac Time Beast common, which is Pulsar Replenish Kotal. So his skill is, when you call him from your deck, if you have a Zodiac Time Beast Vanguard, he gets +3k until end of turn. Then, if you do not have any face-up cards in your damage zone, you countercharge 1. So you just time leap a grade 2 into this when you have no face-up damage, and he's a 14k attacker, meaning he can bully your opponent's rear guards easily, and he gets you a countercharge, and then he goes back to deck because of time leap. So really good. This is, you can get him, I say time leap, but the deck doesn't run the deck doesn't run many time leap cards anymore, but Chrono Jet G is still gonna be doing those, start of turn time leaps, so you can usually get him off. Next we have Pulsar Valve Laser Dragon. Continuous Vanguard Rearguard Circles. If the number of cards in your bind zone is 1 or less, this unit cannot attack a Vanguard because he's a grade 2 with 11k. And then in bind zone, Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, call this card to Rearguard Circle. If you have a ZTB Vanguard, you may bind the top card of your deck face up. So he's not that good. 11k grade 2, but overall not that great. But here's another common that is really good, which is Pulsar Rewind Tiger. When you call him, you make Counterblast 1 and choose one of your other ZTB rearguards and rest it. If you do, bind the top card of your deck face up, and if that card is a ZTB, draw a card, and this unit gets +2k power until end of turn. This card is really good because he's 8k power normally, but he does not have GB1, meaning you can do this on the early game turns. This gives ZTBs some early game because not only do you have your 10k vanilla that you're sitting on your Vanguard circle, you can keep calling out 10ks via Rewind Tiger, and thus, even though your opponent is sitting at 10k and technically evading the grade 2 game, Rewind Tiger says, no, I'm going to be part of grade 2 game by becoming a 10k. So this doesn't look too amazing, on its own, but not only is he a 10k attacker, that is just role-playing a 10k attacker essentially, but he also draws you a card in early game without GB1. This is just really big. I think it's overall, it doesn't look that good on paper, but honestly, the fact that it draws you a card and it also gives you that 10k on to be able to play grade 2 game as Gear Chronicle is unheard of. So really good card overall. I don't know if it's underrated or not because it's been spoken about quite a bit, but just such a good card. Next we have Pulsar Nibble Rat. Bind Zone GB1. At the beginning of the guard step of the battle that your Gear Colossus was attacked, you may counterblast 1 and bind the top card of your deck face up. If you do, call this card to Guardian Circle. And then from hand, you can bind him face up and choose one of your other ZTB rearguards and rest it, and you draw a card. Not that good of a card, he's like an emergency guarding, but it costs a counterblast. And it's also Gear Colossus, so it doesn't really support ZTBs themselves. Next is Pulsar Bling Hawk. When he's placed on Guardian Circle, you may bind the top card of your deck face up. If the card is a ZTB, you choose up to one of your Gear Colossus and it gets +5k until end of that battle. So it's an interesting way to say +10k shield. But it does have to be a Gear Colossus that you bind, and this isn't a Gear Colossus on its own, so it's a bit of an RNG move. Next is a new Gear Colossus starter, so Pulsar Sentry Draco Kid. At the beginning of your ride phase, you may choose one of your grade 3 Gear Colossus from your hand and reveal it. If you do, bind the top card of your deck face up. So this gets you a lot of fast binding, so Demiurge is no longer just a meme. So all this Gear Colossus support does help Demiurge, don't get me wrong, but Demiurge is, it's less of a meme, it's more of a dream now. And then his second skill is an Act GB1, Soul Blast 1 and retire him. If you have a Gear Colossus Vanguard, bind the top card of your deck face up, and if the card is a Zodiac Time Beast, you draw a card. So, not bad. It helps, it definitely helps Demiurge to be less of a meme and more of a dream, but it's, you know, not so much for the actual competitive Zodiac Time Beast. And the last card of Gear Chronicle and the last card of the whole set is Pulsar Tamer Mara. Let me just say, she looks so cute and kind of looks straight out of a Grand and Blue fantasy to me, but you know, that's just me. When you call her or guard with her, if you have a Gear Colossus or Zodiac Time Beast Vanguard, you can count +1. If you do, draw a card and choose a card from your hand, bind it face up and Soul Charge 1. So, interesting, not that good. You know, there's obviously much more game-breaking stand triggers in Gear Chronicle, hahaha. But, you know, she's very cute, so was definitely worth mention. And that wraps it up both for Gear Chronicle and this whole set, including. So let me know what you guys think of G-BT11. We will be opening up a box of this set on the channel in just a few days. So I have it sitting right next to me right now, but it's a bit too dark to be filming. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. What's your most hype part of this set? Honestly, I am quite a big fan of it. I think it's a pretty good set, and the next one is too. So G has been doing a good job so far of keeping cards quality and, you know, not giving Time Leap that support and making ZTBs a good deck as well, which is really good in my eyes. So yeah, but there's obviously a lot of other stuff in this set, like Nubatama and the new Amaruda and all this other stuff that you can try out and play around with, so let me know what you guys are looking forward to. So that's gonna be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.